Hello, and welcome in. Hi, Chris. How are you? Nice to see you. It's the Matt Murphy Radio Show. May I be the first to say good afternoon, 12:05.
You know, you do usually do a radio show about this time.
I tried. Well, listen. I mean, Pamela first talking. I'm not getting in the way. I'm just doing my thing here.
What?
I'm listening to Pamela. You know what we were talking about? I'll tell you what we're talking about. I'm going to tell them. Yes,
right,
you stay
okay,
here, and I'm going to tell you. Mr. Weber's in the behind the glass in the control area, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. In the absence of Bell K, who's on Bell K's been on vacation for 4 days, and he left for vacation today.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What's he been doing the rest of the week?
I don't know.
Drinking.
Probably.
Yeah, let's just say day drinking.
He left for Dallas this morning. Today is Thursday, March 23rd. He's been on vacation since Monday, and he left for vacation today. I don't know. I've got no clue. Anyway, so Chris Weber's in there. He's doing double duty, both the Murphy Show and The Drive. So thank you, Chris, for that. Now, so the other morning, and Pamela and I were just talking about this. We're listening to Nashville's Morning News, as everyone does.
Right.
With Dan Mandis, Johnny B., and Ken Weaver.
Right.
And they have their gang of three amigos. And they talk about the proposed legislation in the General Assembly to raise the speed limit, something that I'm all for.
Right.
And I can cite you, and I know that there's myriad of study out there that says blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I can also show you myriad of studies that suggest that the fatality rates in an accident when you're going 70 versus 75, they're minusculely different. I mean, it's just anyway. But we're listening. Were you listening?
I was listening this morning. I don't know if I was listening when you were, but I heard what.
Did you hear the same
I heard
thing?
what Dan Mandis said about driving 75 this morning. I don't know what you heard. It is your show, but I will say, Dan, bless his heart. This morning he goes, I tried driving 75 today. And guys, it scared me. I was a little scared.
He did not.
I'm not kidding.
He did not.
Yes, he did. It scared me a little bit. My RAV4 started to shake a little bit.
I have $100. I have $100 if Mandis was willing to get back on the back of my Harley.
Yeah.
That I could make him pee himself. I got $100.
How fast do you go on that thing?
I mean, as fast as you want.
As fast as possible.
I think you could just rev it up a little bit and you might get that effect.
Well,
he did not say.
I'm telling you the truth. Or at least that's what I heard.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, the thing is, I go 70 and a 70, but I go, oh no, is he calling?
Oh, look, there's the hotline rolling.
Is he calling?
Oh, look.
Is he on the air?
It says Mandandis.
Fake news. Fake news. You know what?
Hey, boss, I've been trying to stop Pamela from talking like this, and she won't stop.
Yeah. Okay. So just for the record, I was comfortable going 75. It was once I got up to 80 and beyond, I got a little nervous.
You did not go beyond 80. Just tell the truth.
No, I did. I went. I'm on my way to work. It's it's 2:00 in the morning, so there's nobody on 40 West. And we, as I said this morning, I kicked it into, hyperspace and hyperdrive, whatever it is, in Star Wars. And I went up to like 82, 83, 85, and that's when I got a little nervous. But 75 was fine. You can check the tape.
Fine.
But Dan, this does not change the fact that 2 mornings ago, the gang of three amigos.
Yeah.
I think you all three were in agreement that 75 is just too fast for these whippersnappers to be going out on our interstate highways.
You go 75
Okay, you know what?
anyway. Come on.
All right, so we may have sounded a little old fogey-ish. I will give you that. But you know what?
I didn't
went
say
75 today, no problem. It was fine, no problem today. 75, get up to 80 and beyond. The old RAV4 starts shaking.
Well,
I thought you said 75.
I just had a super texter tell me that RAV4s don't do more than 80 anyway. So
And listen, Murphy, I will not be getting on your bicycle or your motorcycle
Your
or anything
bicycle?
else that's vehicle. I'm not getting on
Come on, Dan.
your motorcycle.
No, all you have to do is get on, straddle that thing, and grab me around the waist and hold on tight.
See that he's out right
You know
there.
what? You know what, Murphy, in your dreams. I'm not holding anything to you.
I've been wanting to do this since I got here. You ready? Get off my phone, Dan Mandis. Ooh,
Nice.
I hung up on the boss.
Oh, wait, he is the boss. I
know.
forgot.
Well, we will talk about that today. That's a subject of the show that Pamela and I were previewing before we came on air. Is the proposal to go up to 75 miles an hour, which everybody goes anyway.
Well, they do, but let me, in Dan's defense, and Chris can tell you, there have been times that I have walked into this studio rattled because of the tractor trailers that are whipping right by me. Gotta be doing 95 or 100. And I'm sitting here going, oh God. To keep up with them, I'm going to have to go 85. And once it starts getting 85 and 90, that's when I start getting a little nervous because I know that I'm not a good driver. So I'm thinking, I'm going to get killed. That tractor trailer is going to run me over. So I literally take CBD oil to calm me down.
In the car.
While you're driving.
While you're driving. Pamela just loads up the bong and changes out the bong water to
It's like, oh my God.
calm herself down in the car.
But
Maybe,
we do
you know what?
75 anyway.
This might explain something. Mandis lives out my way. We don't allow him into South Mount Juliet on the Providence side. That's Murph territory.
That's why he keeps hitting Hermitage before he heads to the house.
All right, so but he's on the north side. But if he was on the interstate driving in today, so I'm driving in at about 11:40. No, not 11:40, 10:40, and there were two state troopers parked in the median, and they had their guns out, and they were, and maybe they were looking for Mandis in his RAV4.
For Mandis for driving too slow.
There is a minimum, after all.
There is. People forget that. You do have to go a certain speed on the interstate.
Well, my contention is the speed is not the issue on the interstates. It is the lane hopping and it is the going slower. I mean, when I was growing up, and I will sound like an old fogey now, it was pretty common knowledge that the left-hand lane or the left-er in multiple lane situations are the faster lanes. And if you are going slower, you merge to the right. If you have to pass, you get over.
Right.
People don't do that anymore. I mean, the younger generation, they have a blank you attitude.
Yeah. So they'll just drive slow and stay in the middle lane.
Or the left lane.
And
so people have gotten accustomed to that, right?
Yeah.
And so I come up on someone that's driving slowly in the left lane, and people have gotten used to the fact that they're not going to get over, so they swerve over into the right lane only to swerve back over into the left lane. Well, sometimes when you do that, the people try to get over, and now you got a problem.
Now you've got road rage.
What I do on occasion, and Erica hates it when I do this, if I find a really slow driver, like we're driving 70 miles, it's a 70 zone, and this person is going 60 in the left-hand lane. Okay, you're 10 miles an hour below the speed limit in the left-hand lane, and you won't move. I pass them on the right, which I shouldn't have to do, get in front of them, and drive slower than them.
All right. I'm going to raise my hand. I've done that. Have you done that, Chris?
I may have done that.
And they get so mad at you. But you're doing exactly the same thing that they just did to you.
Yes.
And they get mad at you for it.
And they get mad.
I don't know.
And that's why I do it, to make them mad.
Yes, I do too. And but you know what? Nowadays, you can't give the bird anymore. You got to give nowadays people are giving the thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
Yeah.
This is why I take CBD oil, so I don't get mad like that.
You've mentioned that twice now.
Yeah.
Talk to me after the show.
I haven't had any. Oh, really?
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go now.
Okay,
and, I'll send you a message.
All right, bye, Pamela Furr. There's Pamela Furr filling in for Michael Del Giorno. And maybe tomorrow, we don't know. 12:14, SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Yes, we will talk about that today. We'll also talk about Donald Trump today and the non-activity in New York City. Obviously, Alvin Bragg is being talked to. The district attorney there is being I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and no one else does either. We're all speculating on this front. But the absence of activity this week in the aftermath of Donald Trump, and when Donald Trump says he was going to be arrested, by the way, I don't know that Donald Trump really meant that he was going to be arrested. I think Donald Trump used that word intentionally to freak people out, necessarily to draw attention to this issue. But I do believe that Donald Trump perhaps was tipped off that he would be indicted this week, something that's not going to happen now because Donald Trump tipped America off to that fact. And you can make of that what you want. I think it's a master stroke because now Donald Trump's in a position, no matter what happens, he wins. All right, so you have a guy that's being threatened with arrest. He's being threatened with prosecution. Forget the fact that it's a nothing case. He's being threatened to be perp-walked, mugshot. I mean, how do you make that a positive? Donald Trump managed to do it. The only guy, there was a guy years ago, who was it? It was a lawmaker in Texas who was arrested. Somebody on the super text line will remember this. He had a smile. He got arrested for something or another, and and his mugshot was just this huge smile on his face. Well, now, if Alvin Bragg declines to bring charges against Donald Trump claims victory. If Alvin Bragg arrests Donald Trump, that's a victory for Donald Trump, too. Either way. And it's all about the political left, and in this case, I would consider Prosecutor Bragg to be the political left. They're overplaying their hand. They cannot help but overplay their hand. One of the things, and it is a regular occurrence that I talk about this on our show. It's one of the maxims. I need to start a segment. Murphy's Maxims. Murphy Maxim number 347. Democrats always, always, always overplay their hand. They can't help it. If they think they have a winning hand, they go all in. And sometimes it's not a winning hand. And more often than not, they lose whatever momentum they have on whatever issue they think they have because January 6th is a prime example of this. Was January 6th bad? Sure. In a lot of ways it was. But January 6th was not an insurrection. It wasn't enough that a couple of people, several people, maybe 100 or 200 or whatever the number was, in the thousands and thousands of people that went to Washington, D.C. on January 6th, several hundred certainly did bad things. It wasn't enough that several hundred out of those thousands did bad things. They had to turn it into an insurrection. Overplaying your hand. And all of us in America, the regular people are going, what are you talking about? An insurrection, wouldn't they have guns? Wouldn't they have arms? This doesn't look anything like that. I'm watching people milling about the Capitol Rotunda as if they're on a tour. And of course, for many of them, that's exactly what they were doing. Some deserve to be prosecuted, of course. No one is suggesting that Jan 6th was good. What we would say, and reasonable people get, it wasn't an insurrection by any definition. Overplaying their hand. And I could go over time and time again, especially with Donald Trump. Russian collusion is another obvious example of overplaying their hand. And Donald Trump knows better than anyone how to exploit that. And he did it with this dunderhead, this chucklehead in New York City named Alvin Bragg, who promised he would indict Trump when he was coming into office, then declined to do it, and under political partisan pressure sought to bring charges anyway on these trumped-up, nonsensical. I mean, it makes no sense, the strings they're trying to put together between federal law and state law and avoiding statute of limitations and all of this other nonsense. There is zero way that a jury of Donald Trump's peers fairly decided find him guilty of anything. Overplaying their hand. And I predicted yesterday that none of this is coming to fruition. None of it's going to come up. Someone will eventually decide to explain to Alvin Bragg how awful this is on all fronts, and they'll move on. So we will talk about that today. We will talk about Ron DeSantis and his interview with Piers Morgan today. We'll talk about speed limits on Tennessee roads today. Anthony Fauci has a documentary out that fails famously. This is where the porch guy video came from. Has everyone seen the porch guy video by now? Where the guy in Washington, D.C. on his front porch absolutely destroys Muriel Bowser and Anthony Fauci and their narrative that you got to take a shot. We'll discuss that on the show today. And then there is a Tennessee sovereignty bill that I want to talk about. Now, We'll talk about some of these things with Senator Jack Johnson. He'll be up at 12:30 this afternoon. He is the majority leader in the Tennessee General Assembly, and we've got a lot. I've got a laundry list of subjects to bring up with Jack. Scott Sapicki in his normal place in the 1 o'clock hour on our Thursday edition. And you on the phones always. 615-737-9986, 737-WWTN on the Super Text line as well. It's up and running. It's 1220 on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and The Murphy Show until 3 o'clock today. The Drive with Brian Wilton after that. It's our episode 304, and a good afternoon to you. Hope you're well. Join us on the radio. Join us on a myriad of different places to find us on various platforms like TuneIn and iHeart. We're also on Apple, I think, for podcasting purposes. And, of course, the brand new SuperTalk TV, Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. You can always find, I think I'm going to do this tomorrow, whether I have permission or not. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm not gonna say anything about it until tomorrow. Tomorrow, there may or may not be, depending on how management reacts to what I'm about to say, a giveaway of tickets to our big event next Thursday, a week from tonight. So if you've not heard about it, and you're welcome to come on by, Murfreesboro, Parthenon Grill, the whole gang will be there. We'll do an on-site broadcast, I think Brian will be there from 3, obviously. But we'll all join in at 6, from 6 until I think 8 o'clock. We'll mingle with the crowd. We'll have a great time. We'll talk about the shenanigans in Washington, D.C. and in Nashville and beyond. And we will break bread and have a wonderful time. I promise you, you will have a good time. And if you are not having a good time, you come to me personally and you say, Murphy, I'm not having a good time, and we're going to make it a good time. But tomorrow, I'm going to try to see if I can't give away a ticket or two. And I'm going to do it in a way that involves SuperTalk TV. So if you haven't joined us on SuperTalk TV, figure out how to do that. 7516 says, Dear Matt Murphy, I want you to know that I like it when you yell because it shows your passion for our country. Well, thank you. That's a recollection from yesterday. I got chided for yelling yesterday, which I'm always loud, and I'm sorry for that because, this is me at like an 8, and when I go up to an 11, it's a little overwhelming for some. So there. All right, so let's finish up with the conversation about New York City. We'll move on to some of the Donald Trump and TikTok stuff. Alvin Bragg, as I mentioned, like Democrats do, overplayed his hand. And he thought he had a winning strategy to finally, and part of the reason that leftists overplay their hand is because they refuse to have any communication with anyone that's not a leftist. What was the old saying? It was way back in the day, before my time, before I was born. I want to say that it was Lady Astor. I could have this completely wrong. Correct me if my memory has failed me. But it was the 1960 election between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon. And Lady Astor expressed shock and dismay that John F. Kennedy won that election, saying, I don't know of anyone who voted for John F. Kennedy. Completely oblivious to the fact that that says as much about her as it does about his victory. Inasmuch as she only associates with those who would vote a certain way. I think we fall into that trap ourselves in 2023, where because we associate with people who are like-minded, and that's natural to do, there's nothing wrong with that, we fail to recognize that there are a lot of other people, voting people, who think differently than we do on any number of issues. Now, I think there are more conservatives than anyone would give us credit for. There are more libertarians out there than one would get credit for. I don't think the liberals number 81 million, if you know what I'm saying, voting liberals. But there are plenty of them, too. Alvin Bragg only associates with liberal-minded people. And regardless of what he believes his responsibilities are as district attorney, all of those liberals were explaining to him how lauded and appraised he would be should he indict Donald Trump. And when he suggested it wasn't going to happen, they turned on him. I mean, people in his own department resigned in protest, wrote books about it, about him being a turncoat and how he could easily prosecute Trump if he just wanted to get it done. He bought into that narrative, and now it's come to bite him on the proverbial tuchus. And Trump is positioned as he seemed. I've long said this, and I'll say it again. Some believe that Donald Trump is Bobby Fischer. Remember Bobby Fischer? American chess master Bobby Fischer, who eventually went absolutely insane. He was a pretty smart guy, and he was thinking 14, 15, 16 moves ahead of everyone else in the room when it came to chess. Play 20 people at a time and beat them all. That's how far ahead he was. And there are some that suggest that Donald Trump is that far ahead of everyone else. I don't believe that. There are some that would suggest that Donald Trump is Forrest Gump. That remember Forrest Gump? Forrest Gump would just, unbeknownst to him, find himself in a great situation with a great outcome. He bought stock in a fruit company called Apple. Just happened to start a shrimp boat company right after one of the worst hurricanes on the Gulf Coast history, in the Gulf Coast history. You know, got stung by a bumblebee in his butt, got the Congressional Medal of Honor. Had no idea how he came to those situations, but just, I don't think that Donald Trump is Bobby Fischer, and I don't think that Donald Trump is Forrest Gump, but he's somewhere in the middle, in as much as he's an incredibly smart man that has instincts that lead him into incredibly good situations. Time and time again. The one thing that he was not able to overcome was the strategy employed in the midst of COVID that would eventually lead to his ouster in the aftermath of the 2020 election cycle. So that's the one in the L column, right? And most of us agree that that loss came with a lot of asterisks, considering all the shenanigans that went on during that election cycle. But now he's back to it, man, and he's back after it, and he finds himself in yet another good position. Thank you to the dunderheads, or as I call them, the chuckleheads in New York City. All right, coming up, Jack Johnson's with us. He's Senate Majority Leader, and he'll talk to us about what's going on in the General Assembly. That's next on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. When I first met Paul Winkler, I sat down with him for a 15-minute conversation. An hour and a half later, I stood up, and I was so well educated on finances, financial investments, and the strategy that Paul Winkler employs. At that time, I said, Paul, I want to talk to you about you on the radio every day to the people in the SuperTalk 99.7 WTN listening audience. And Paul said, A-OK. And so now I do that. I get paid to do it. I'm incentivized to do it. But here's the bottom line. I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe in the way this guy does business, and I do. He believes in education first, and it's important. A lot of financial investors try to talk above you. I mean, it's just, it's a reality. Maybe they don't even try to talk above you, but they do. They talk about things that we don't quite understand. Paul puts it in terms that we can understand, and he focuses on your nest egg, because that's what you're focused on, right? You want to make sure that it grows as it should over your working life, and it's there for you, protected when it comes time for retirement. And that's exactly what Paul Winkler does. Of course, he's a fiduciary, meaning that he is dedicated to doing everything in your financial interest. I want you to give him a call or look him up online at paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com. You can set up a free 15-minute telephone conversation either online or by making the call at 615-851-1950. 10 offices to serve. 615-851-1950. 851-1950 for Paul Winkler.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Winkler. The financial world can be full of landmines for investors. On the one hand, investment firms and the financial community will often overcomplicate the financial planning process to confuse investors. As one guy who used to work a big investment firm once told me, if an investor thinks that they're over their head, they'll blindly trust you. And it's easier to sell to them. I'm glad I'm away from that. On the other hand, many people oversimplify investing to the detriment of investors. Just having a little knowledge can be really dangerous. The idea there is the same. It's just a different way of selling things. At Paul Winkler Inc., we like working alongside our clients with an education guidance approach. I believe that there's confidence that comes with knowing what you're doing and why. We abide by the very highest level of fiduciary care, and we use the most sophisticated financial planning tools out there. And every one of our offices is run by a degreed planner with over 20 years experience. No kids fresh out of college. If that sounds like a winning formula, set up a free 15-minute phone call to learn more. Go to paulwinkler.com or call 615-851-1950. You can do this.
SuperTalk 99.7 WTN, a loaded show today. Man, there's a lot going on this week. Internationally, Ukraine, Russia, China, Russia. Nationally, they're talking TikTok up on Capitol Hill. And with the General Assembly, man, it is crunch time. And as I was just telling our next guest, we're getting to a point, and I've not done this a lot in the state of Tennessee, but I'm getting my feet underneath me now. But I've been a part of a lot of legislative processes, and it is I love it when we come down to not just what is getting passed, but what is getting killed, because that says a lot about the priorities in a General Assembly, what they're trying to accomplish, and what they feel like isn't moving overall in the right direction. To speak on all of these issues, we welcome back to the show in studio Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson.
Hey, Jack. Good to be with you again. Thanks for having me.
You're on SuperTalk TV, Jack. You know that,
wow.
right?
That light is a little intimidating. I love the backdrop, by the way. It's the first time
How about
I've been
this?
in since that's
I think you've had a conversation with a mutual friend about something that she and I talked about several days ago that we'll just we won't talk too much about it, but we'll just put it'll put the icing on the cake.
I hope to have been able to deliver that today. It's not quite ready.
Okay.
But
All right.
it will be soon. It will be soon.
We will let the audience in on it as soon as we can. What is the biggest thing going on this week on the Hill?
When you really think about substance and affecting people's lives and dollars involved, it's the Traffic Modernization Act. I mean, that's one of the biggest things this General Assembly has taken up in a lot of years. We're talking billions of dollars. We're talking roads, interstates, something that affects everyone. I heard you guys talking earlier about people driving slow in the left-hand lane, which drives me crazy. And we do have laws on the books against that. But no, that's a biggie, and it is progressive. We've passed it in the Senate, and I think the House will have it on the floor.
Is that what we're calling the choice lane bill?
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
I mean,
yeah. It's officially because it does a lot of other things. It has to do with making sure electric vehicle owners are paying something into the gas tax fund, right? Streamlining the process of how we design and build and do environmental studies for roads. So making all that more efficient, being able to get projects done quicker. And then certainly there is the element of the choice lanes.
The biggest criticism in this conversation that I have heard, and I don't want to speak to it, I want you to speak to it, is it's taxation. I don't want my taxes going up.
Sure.
How do you respond?
Well, that's why the governor proposed this, because it's not a tax. A tax is something the government makes you pay. You don't have a choice whether to pay sales tax. You don't have a choice whether to pay business tax if you own a business. That's why we refer to them as choice lanes. We're going to add capacity to our interstate, the most congested interstate facilities around Middle Tennessee, around Knoxville, maybe in Memphis, and we're going to add capacity that will be an option for drivers to use. And if you don't ever get in one of those choice lanes, you'll never pay for the upkeep or to build that choice lane. You're paying gas tax, and you're paying that now, and I'm paying that now for our existing road system, and you'll continue to pay that and use those other lanes there. So no, I don't consider it a tax. I don't consider it to be double taxation.
Oh, where is it? You just mentioned this. Where's the bill?
It passed overwhelmingly in the Senate. I think the vote was 26-6, and with one member absent. And it is in House Finance full committee and will be on the floor probably next week.
Before we get too far away from it, I do want to bring up, and it's kind of it's an issue that at least unless some other news comes out about it, it is to bed, so to speak, and that is the Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally and some of his well-documented social media issues. The Senate this week took a vote of confidence or no confidence, depending on your point of view. And I think it was, 19-7?
That's correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
It was. And I've said from the beginning that I think the voters of Senator McNally's district will determine for themselves how long they wish him to serve in that capacity. But it's up to you guys in the Senate to determine how long he serves as lieutenant governor. That's fair, right?
It is, absolutely.
And did he ask for the vote?
He did. Yeah, he requested the vote. Now, to be clear, there were some members who went to him and requested that he conduct a vote, and he listened to those, and he felt that was the right thing to do. So he called for the vote. We had a call. Members of Senate leadership had a call with him on Saturday, and he said, "I want to know where the body is, and I want you to conduct a vote."
I look at what we do as sort of a voice of the people, and I think you probably look at what you do in the same capacity, but we're probably coming at it from two different ways. It struck me as odd that it was a secret ballot, and the reason is the voters do not get to have a say in who is their lieutenant governor outside of what their senators say about who is their lieutenant governor, and I think the voters maybe would want to know where their senators stand on these individual issues. What say you about that?
Well, I think that's very fair. I think it's fair, but I do want to give you some context. The lieutenant governor requested that it be via a secret ballot so that members could vote their conscience. And, you know, it's a tough decision because we love this man. Let me be very clear. I mean, Randy McNally is one of the finest people I've ever known. He's got a 40-plus year career of distinguished service in our state. This social media activity, I can't explain it, and it was embarrassing for the state. I acknowledge that. It seemed to be very out of character for him. Having said that, though, with the context and the relationships that we have, he wanted members to be able to express themselves and privately and to be able to do that. I think it's entirely fair if people want to ask how their representative voted. The other thing I would say about it is this was not an official act of the General Assembly. It was not a vote to remove him. It wasn't. That would take a public vote on the Senate floor with all members. This was more he wanting to get a feel for where the caucus was. Some members had expressed their opinions to him face to face or on the phone, one on one, and he's obviously spoken with every member. And the other thing is that it's consistent with our Senate rules relative to elections of leadership. When we have an election to elect the majority leader, which I am, and I was contested the first time I ran, and that vote was via secret ballot. Members vote by secret ballot. When we nominate our candidate as the Republican caucus to be lieutenant governor, that is done via secret ballot as well.
I don't mean to be obtuse, but why? Why do you do it that way? Outside of shielding that vote from the public?
Well, I think that's a fair question. The vote to actually elect the individual, so if there's a Republican candidate for speaker that's going to be held on the Senate floor, or if there's a vote to and there's a Democratic candidate, and that's a roll call vote on the Senate floor. But the caucus elections have, I hate giving this kind of an answer, but it's the way they've always done it, and the House does it that way too. So maybe we should look at opening those up.
Look, at the end of this conversation, you and I are going to remain friends.
Sure,
I have all the respect for you in the world, even if we disagree on this point, and I'm not trying to rewrite, generations of Tennessee policy and law or whatever during a 30-minute interview. It struck me, and I've stated it, and I'll just leave it be, that it struck me as odd that we would not give, and maybe the senators would be willing to do that. And I would encourage, if you have a senator and you want to know, I mean, obviously you do have a senator. If you want to know how they voted, contact their office and see if they'll let you know. And if they'll either will, and you can judge it from there, or they won't, and you can judge that individually as well.
I think that's very fair.
Let's talk about the city of Nashville. There's a lot of consternation about the Metro Council bill, although I note that while they are suing the state, they are moving forward with redrawing district lines,
redistricting, right?
Which gives me a real strong indication as to how they feel like they're going to fare in that. You've been real plain spoken about the hierarchy in all of this. At the same time, there was another bill that seemed to be punitive that's now DOA in the General Assembly, and that's the convention center bill. And I think that's a good thing. It felt punitive to me. Where were you on that bill?
Well, I was the sponsor of the bill.
Right.
So, and the way it was drafted, you can, and to be clear, that bill was brought to me by the lieutenant governor, and the House Speaker had the House version of it, and he took it to someone as well. And as drafted, it was. I mean, if you read that bill as it was filed and drafted, well, number one, it wasn't workable, what the plain language of that bill said, because it would lead to default of the bonds that were issued to build them at the convention center. And none of us want that.
Because right now they raise money based on those bonds to pay those bonds.
Exactly.
Through, conventions and the promotion of activities. Right. And the idea, for those who don't know, was it's kind of the general assembly. I don't want to mischaracterize it. You tell me if I am, Jack, but the idea was, okay, you don't want big money-generating conventions, fine, you don't get to collect your tax anymore.
Right. Well, and I absolutely acknowledge that one could read the bill as filed and come to that conclusion. One of the very first calls, I don't think it would mind me telling this, one of the first calls that I received once the bill was filed was from the comptroller of the Treasury of the state of Tennessee saying, Jack, what are you doing? This could result in them defaulting on these bonds. Nobody wants that. I think where we were going to try to get with the legislation, and we may still at a future time, is relative to misuse of some of those proceeds by Metro Nashville. we created a special tax zone so that they could collect sales tax and the money that's generated there to retire the debt that was issued to build the convention center and to have a fund to maintain it. And it's undeniable that the Metro, the city of Nashville, was using some of those funds for other purposes, and we needed to get that under control.
The abortion bill, I think, has the fix bill, as I've been calling it. I believe it's passed the House. It's in the Senate. Have you reviewed it? And if so, are you comfortable with it?
I am. In fact, I signed on to it. And you've talked about it, and your audience knows this is a delicate issue. People have very strong feelings about different things. My position was, and this is where I think we ended up with the language that we have now, is to make any necessary clarifications for those in the medical community that when a patient presents, a woman presents, and she has a crisis pregnancy, that physician can take any and all steps necessary to save the life of the mother. I believe that's the intent. I believe that's what our trigger bill says that we have on the books now. I believe that's what it says. But some in the medical community have raised some concerns about some ambiguity in that language and wanted to make sure that was clarified. And that's where we've ended up now. The bill did come out of the Senate Judiciary Committee, probably have it on the floor next week. And once I saw where it was and that in fact is what it was doing. It's not opening it up for more abortions. It's simply clarifying the original intent of what we passed with the trigger bill. Then I was happy to sign on.
I mean, I believe that it's consistent with the opinion of the vast majority of Tennessee voters or Tennessee citizens, right?
I do as well.
That while most Tennessee citizens are against abortion on demand, they recognize that in certain cases, when the life of the mother is in danger, the doctors in those cases need to be able to make the necessary medical decision.
100%. And they don't need to be going to call their lawyer to say, okay, here's the situation I have. In my best medical judgment, I believe that this mother's life. And keep in mind, I recognize, and I think anyone should, one physician may see it one way, another physician might see it another way. And that's okay. But if in their legitimate medical judgment, they believe they need to take an action and need to terminate a pregnancy because of whatever medical reason, it's jeopardizing the life of that mother, then they should be able to do so.
Do you think the characterization of the bill, and I've heard this from some, that it was weakening the abortion laws that would prevent abortion on demand in the state of Tennessee? Do you think those were unfair?
Well, there were variations and there were drafts of amendments that were circulating that I think some in the pro-life community thought did exactly that. Mm-hmm. And that was a concern. And I shared that concern because I was completely fine with clarifying and strengthening what we have on the books now.
Well, it's similar in that way, follow me here, to the drag bill, what is now known as the drag bill, because that was a simple clarification as well that has been completely mischaracterized in some circles, liberal circles in Tennessee and certainly outside of Tennessee, much like the Florida Don't Say Gay bill. Mm-hmm. I feel like Tennessee, we fell into that liberal trap as well. But I thought something that happened this week in the Senate kind of flies in the face of that narrative. It was a clarification bill, right? The one that passed and was signed by the governor. Right. Just clarifying that
you can't do obscene things in front of kids.
In front of kids.
Period.
That's it. There was a bill, I think Janice Bowling no, wait, I might be wrong in that. I can't remember who sponsored it, but there was a bill that would have done what some of the liberal critics suggested we've already done, which was ban drag shows, ban adult cabaret, and that failed in the Senate.
It did. That bill did not advance. And true story, I've done lots of interviews on this, and I was with some news outlet, and they literally opened the interview. It was via Zoom, and the very first question, first of all, they showed some video of drag performers performing, not doing anything sexually explicit, just dancing and singing and whatever else. And the first question was, Tennessee passes legislation to ban drag shows. Senator Johnson, why did you think it was necessary to ban drag shows in Tennessee? And I went, I didn't. That's not what the bill does.
It puts you in a weird position where, and I've known you since I've been here, you defend the legality of drag shows, which is probably not a place that you thought you would be.
Not a comfortable place for me necessarily, but that's right.
So the bill that would, quote unquote, ban drag shows failed in the Senate. Now, before we go, we've got a few minutes left. And I bring this conversation up because I want to watch your head explode. This is really just for me. 268. Is that not the digital monetization
money
bill?
Transmitter bill, the nightmare of all bills.
Right, because
the bill's fine, it's good, but just the way it's been mischaracterized.
Right, because there are a lot of people telling me that this is a conspiracy amongst the political left. Maybe the Federal Reserve is involved. I think the World Economic Forum and Davos is a part of it. And you, Jack Johnson, to digitize our money and somehow have the government take control of our bank accounts.
Yeah, completely misrepresenting what the bill does. The bills came to us from our Department of Financial Institutions, which simply says, we've got PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, all these ways that you can send money to people in other countries. I send my kids money all the time using these apps. Mm-hmm. And there's very little oversight or regulation of some of these companies. And then there's some smaller, lesser-known names that I don't know if they're on solid ground. So that's what the bill does, and it's the Association of Financial Commissioners across the nation came up with this Model Act, and that's what it deals with. But let me just put it this way: don't take my word for it. My dear friend William Lamberth, who you've had on the show, mm-hmm. he's the House Majority Leader, so he was the sponsor. This came from the administration, so he and I were the sponsors. He had the great idea to go to the Beacon Center, which is an independent think tank that we all respect. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're nonpartisan, and they do great work. He had them review this bill and say, does this do anything to facilitate or advance an opportunity to establish central bank digital currency in the state of Tennessee? And they said, absolutely not. None whatsoever. There was another bill. We refer to it as the UCC bill, Uniform Commercial Code bill, that did create some current concerns legitimately, and that bill was taken off notice. I think some people have confused. And that's the bill that Kristi Noem vetoed in South Dakota. So it wasn't this bill.
Okay, so the Noem bill was the one that is gone.
That we did not even advance.
Jack, it's always a pleasure. It always goes by so fast. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. I wish I could stick around and just listen to Representative Sapicki.
Oh, come on. He's going to bring the House side of things. He's going to tell us how everything you just said was wrong. No, I'm just kidding. It's a joke. Jack Johnson, thank you.
Thank you.
There's Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson. Got to take a quick time out. Be back in a moment. Hey, friends, Nashville Painting Company's on my mind and should be on yours. If you're looking for a painter in Middle Tennessee, there's only one that I would recommend, Jeremy Reeves and Nashville Painting Company. You've heard my story. I knew Jeremy before I came to Nashville. I knew Jeremy before he came to Nashville. He was in Birmingham painting houses. He painted my house. He painted the interior and the exterior, and that paint job still stands up some 12 years later. Now he's in Nashville, has been for almost a decade, painting houses and doing it the right way. You'll get exact scopes and pricing from Jeremy and his team. There's a supervisor on every job. Whatever the project might be, it is time to get that house spruced up for the spring. Exterior, interior, deck standing, and the like. Go with Jeremy Reeves and Nashville Painting Company. Locally owned, that's important to me. The money stays here in Middle Tennessee. That's important to me as well. 615-635-0350. 635-0350. It's Jeremy and Nashville Painting Company online at NashvillePaintingCompany.com. For years I did this. I would turn on my AC after the winter months had come and gone and spring was here and we're getting up like we are today to 80 degrees and beyond, and I would smell that smell. You know what I'm talking about, that dust, that smell that you get coming out of your vents because you haven't operated the AC in a while. Why would you put yourself and your family through that? You don't need to smell that smell. That is not good for you. It's not healthy for your family. What you need to do is call my man Jeff Eddy of Efficient Heating and Cooling and let him come over and clean that thing and make sure that it's running as it should. Efficient Heating and Cooling is a smaller company with big results and big service in their minds. Jeff Eddy doesn't want to be the biggest heating and air conditioning company in the world, but he does want to be the most trustworthy, and he wants to make sure that you believe what he tells you is the truth. I take it as gospel. When he says that you need to replace, you know it's a fact. That's why Jeff Eddy has become a trusted second opinion when it comes to replacing your unit. But here's the deal. You need to get in line to maintenance that AC, make sure it's running as it should to protect it. It has a life cycle, as we all do, and you want to protect and get the most out of that AC that you possibly can. So when it comes time, they're obviously a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric, an Elite Pro partner with Rheem, but we want to make sure that it isn't time yet. Schedule that maintenance today, 615-784-4424, 784-4424, or efficienthvac.net. It's the hardest question I've been asked today, Sapicki. Hey, it's 105 SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy with you on a Thursday edition. It is a legislative roundup, a true legislative roundup. We heard from a voice in the Senate. That would be Majority Leader Jack Johnson in the first hour. And now this hour, we hear from the House of Representatives. Our weekly guest, Representative Scott Sapicki, joining us in studio. Hello, by the way. Good afternoon. Welcome in. Hope you're well. Hot today. Getting up to like 80 degrees or thereabouts, and expected to continue along those lines. There's some nasty weather coming in, I guess, tomorrow night. We're expecting some severe weather, so just be on the lookout for that. And you know what to do. You're adults. You're grown-ups. You understand how to deal with that. All right, coming up in the last hour of the show, I just want to keep you here. That's what we do. Jack Daniels versus poop dog toys, something that we made reference to earlier in the week. We have not delved into it. Oh, the Supreme Court is involved. The United States Supreme Court is deciding an issue between Jack Daniels and poop dog toys. So that's coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. I don't know how Scott Sapicki is going to preview that or be better than that. I don't know, but we'll find out. Scott Sapicki joins us in studio. Hey, Scott.
I am going to stay as far away from that.
Yeah. I try to introduce you in such a way that makes you regret coming in here every week.
That was not a softball at all, right there.
Hey, we talked about something last week that got more attention than I thought it would. And since we've spoken, it's gotten a lot more attention than I thought it would, yes. And it involves the Duck River.
Yes.
For those who missed it last week, talk about your interest in the Duck River and protecting it and what this means for the General Assembly.
So this bill that I thought was really nothing. It was just Murray County wanting to protect the Duck River. History on the Duck River, back in the days of phosphate mining and stuff in Murray County, it was probably one of the most polluted rivers in the country. Through time, it has cleaned itself back up to now be recognized as the most biodiverse river, not in Tennessee, in the nation, and fourth in the world. Fourth in the world, right here in Middle Tennessee.
In our backyard.
And now with the growth of southern Middle Tennessee, it is now the drinking water for 350,000 Tennesseans and growing every day.
Mm-hmm.
200,000 people recreate on the Duck River every year. Businesses thrive because they got it in Murray County, but they thrive because they have clean drinking water to be able to do things with. We're putting a new battery plant in Murray County to service the General Motors plant. Requires 25% of the water source for Columbia Power and Water available at all times in case of a fire.
Mm-hmm.
25%. So we ran a bill that said, look, we have a vested interest of the state to, one, protect the environmental issues of the Duck River. It has endangered species all up and down it. But for some reason, Matt, that section of the Duck River that runs through Murray County is the most biodiverse part of the whole river. So we have an obligation as a state to protect our natural resources, protect the drinking water for 350,000 Tennesseans from any future landfill that could be placed within 2 miles of the Duck River. That's it. And this thing has become the bill of the General Assembly.
And it is specific to landfills.
Yes, that's it.
What's the argument against it?
So there's a big argument. Well, there was an argument from one of the landowners who purchased 1,300 acres that sits on a horseshoe in the Duck River. Mm-hmm. So it's surrounded on all sides by the Duck River. And his argument is he should be able to put a landfill there. Well, the problem is when I was on the county commission in 2013, we put a zoning overlay on there that said there are no landfills within 2 miles of the Duck River. We recognized back then the importance of protecting our water source, right? He purchased the property in 22. So the overlay was in place when he bought the property.
In 9 years.
And he's saying, I'm not going to obey it. I don't care. I should be able to put a landfill within 2 miles of the Duck River. And if you go down there, if you come down and visit, I'll show you where he wants to put on the old Monsanto property, which has 3 Superfund sites on it.
So, I mean, conservatives such as yourself, Scott, get hung, and I think unfairly, with business before everything, free market and capitalism before all. And Democrats have tried to kind of corner the market on being, conservatives of clean air or water. And this is one of the more ecologically friendly bills that I've seen since I've been in Tennessee, and I applaud you for it.
Well, I appreciate that. Here's what's interesting. We have Democrats and Republicans supporting and working together. We have the liberal left and the conservative right working together in support of this. We have environmentalists and agriculture working together supporting this bill. It is the definition of how we drew up our country, of all sides working together for the common good of everybody. It is the definition of bipartisanship. And it has become a bill here of a struggle between that bipartisanship, recognizing the importance of a natural resource and water to a region of Tennessee, and a landowner that wants to put a landfill.
And I understand that some that would consider themselves conservatives, their hackles get up when the government begins to tell business how they should do their business. And I kind of go back to zoning, that zoning is a structure that we put in place as a society and as governments who are elected by individuals within our society to give us a basic structure as to how we're going to do our business. I shouldn't move into a house and then have a pig farm open up next door to me without me having any say on it. I should be assured that if I move into a house and invest in a property, that I'm not going to have that pig farm. That's what zoning does, basically. Right. And this feels to me like that kind of issue, that it's the basic premise is landfills have demonstrated over time that they cannot be contained, and so we're not going to have them close to the river.
Right. Now, nobody's saying that you can't build a landfill. You just can't put it within 2 miles of the Duck River, one of the most biodiverse rivers in the world. It's going to contaminate it eventually. There's nobody's going to step up to the microphone and say that landfills don't leak. Nobody's going to tell you that. That's why they have to have a bond in place when they get the landfill permit, to make sure that when they do leak, there's money set aside to pay for remediation.
I'm just confused, and I don't know the landowner. I don't know the person that bought the property in 2022. Wouldn't know him if he walked into the studio right now, but I'm just confused what his argument is if Murray County already passed this ordinance.
Well, you'd have to call him because he lives in Louisiana and ask him that question.
So where is the bill now?
It did pass the Agricultural and the Natural Resources Committee. It kind of went through that committee, kind of odd. It passed on an 11-5 vote. The committee stood by and sided with the people to make sure that it was going to protect them. It now goes to government operations. Hopefully we get a favorable from government operations. And then in about 2 weeks, it'll be on the House floor. The Senate has already passed this 2 weeks ago on consent.
So would it just encompass portions of the Duck River in Murray County?
Just Murray County. And if downriver they want to start to join us on it to protect the river, that's that county's decision.
Right. You just wanted to step aside and let them make that choice.
Yeah.
But every time I've seen signs for the Duck River, it says Scenic Duck River.
Yes.
And now I know why. And now you want me, you make me want to get in a kayak and
You should come down in the springtime when everything's starting to bloom and stuff. It's beautiful.
I bet it is.
We now have some of the better smallmouth fishing in the state now in the Duck River.
I mean, do you believe that now this is past committee, that it's getting to the governor? I mean, I know you don't count your chickens before they hatch, but
I think we are in a lot better position than we were. It is amazing the amount of people that have gotten involved in this. We had over 300 people come up from Murray County to sit in committee for an hour and a half, 4 weeks in a row.
Grace wants to talk on it. Let's let her. Hey, Grace, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to thank Mr. Sapicki for picking up this issue. I was tweeting on it a couple of weeks ago. Thank you for actually giving it a voice.
Well, I really appreciate that. It is my pleasure to serve.
Absolutely. We have had this issue before, if you recall. Only it was after the fact, after the TVA spill up in Kingston, and that debris got trucked everywhere, and it ended up tainting aquifers and the Cumberland River and what have you. So that absolutely was the first thing that popped in mind when the Duck River issue came up. So I just wanted to really thank you again for giving that some voice, because citizens really have lost their voice because the developers have taken over the zoning, Matt.
No, I mean, I get it. I understand that there's a lot of frustration, especially closer you get to Nashville, about how the developers take over. They don't seem to – I mean, I'm new, but Grace, you're not, and we've talked a lot about these things. Scott, you've been around. They don't seem to take consideration of the history of the city when they're knocking things over and trying to rezone things. So I agree with you.
Yep. All right.
All right. Thanks, Trace. And then this from the super text line, and I'm just going to, I don't know where this person's coming from. I don't know who this person is. 4295 says, this guy, that's you, this guy couldn't tell you 5 species on the Duck River.
Snail darter. There's an endangered zebra mussel, smallmouth, largemouth, bluegill, crappie.
I promise I didn't tell him. I did not tell Scott Spicky beforehand that I was going to bring that up. It just came into the super text line.
Congratulations.
You got 6 in.
That's 6.
Probably going to get more.
I'll give you more if you need them.
Well, I mean, and I asked the question, do you support the landfill? I mean, that's beside the point. I mean, I would love to hear someone who supports the concept of putting a landfill that close. Look, I'm a free market guy, but there have to be boundaries and rules to protect things like waterways, especially not just for recreation, not just for I mean, people drink this water, and we have to be able to protect it.
Well, we some of us can live without food for 45 days and may need to for a while, but you can only live 48 hours to 72 hours without water. And the people of East Palestine, right, their lives are changed forever. They've got to decide, is it even worthwhile staying there? But the problem is that spill has ruined their property values. Could you imagine all the agricultural farmers who are downstream of this potential landfill killing their livestock, contaminating their crops because they draw water out for irrigation? This could be an ecological catastrophe. So
I think Paul out of Williamson County, I don't want to presume, but it says he wants to talk about Calvin Coolidge. And I know a little about Calvin Coolidge. He's my favorite president of the United States, old Silent Cal. And if that description of his call is any indication, I think Paul might be against us on this. Let's see. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Hey, man. No, I didn't really want to talk about him. I meant to call last week, just didn't have the number handy. No, I wanted to give you props and thank you for calling out Calvin Coolidge. I've been saying the same for years, and people give me a blank look most of the time.
What, that he's one of the finest presidents this country has ever known?
Dude, I love Ronnie Reagan. I love Ronnie, and for his time, Ronnie was the best. But, man, no, if you want to talk true conservative president down the line, how many conservatives are going to say no to subsidizing seed for farmers?
Do you have a bug? You have a secret bug on me somewhere, Paul, because I've been saying for years that Calvin Coolidge makes Ronald Reagan look like Woodrow Wilson. That's what I've always said.
Honestly, there's a couple. When you first came on, I was like, all right, we got a new guy again. Well, I didn't know much about Mandis, but I gave him time. I like Dan now. So, yeah, we'll see what this Matt guy's about. And then, like I said, you just popped Calvin Coolidge out of it the other day. I was like, okay, yep, he's solid.
One of my, I'll tell you, since, well, Paul, thank you. I got to run. Since I've come to Tennessee, I've come to have a great appreciation for a president that hails from down in your neck of the woods or near your neck of the woods, Columbia, Tennessee, James K. Polk. I had no idea. Prior to coming to Tennessee, at 48 years of age, I did not know that Polk chose not to run for a second term because he made that promise during his campaign. I had no idea. I thought he was just a one-termer. You know, one of those one-termers, one of those middle of the, one of those presidents between Van Buren and Lincoln, Right. No, I've done some reading on him, and what a great president.
Well, you also might want to check with his wife about that decision, too.
Probably so. All right, let's take a short time out. We'll be back. We'll talk about education with Scott Sapicki. Obviously, that's a a notable interest of his in the House of Representatives, and I believe we have a little movement on third grade retention. We'll discuss that. We'll continue taking your telephone calls. Scott is always available for those as well. It's 118 on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. You know, I've noted my lower back pain, and it's been around for a while. For a long time in my 20s, my back allowed me to lift with it and didn't say a word in my 20s. My back just sat there silently and said, oh, I'll get the final say on this, and boy, did it in my 40s. I sadly learned what it means to lift with your legs and not your back by the time my back started ailing me. And, you know, that comes with pills. That comes with other things that you do to try to cover up some of the pain, you know, the ointments and whatnot. And sadly, a lot of times those simply don't cover up the issue. Well, the Dr. Gill Center is here for you. I went to the Dr. Gill Center a year ago, and man, oh man, they have, one, solved my upper neck compression. I had a compression in my upper neck that I wasn't aware of that was causing radiating pain out to my shoulders. And now that I've had that spinal decompression therapy that the Dr. Gill Center offers, I don't have that pain anymore. The lower back is a more long-term deal, but they have alleviated my pain to the point that I don't take pain pills anymore, and I don't have to consider surgery any longer. You could be next. In 2023, they're offering their $23 special. Call them now. An examination, x-ray, review of findings. It is a limited-time offer. It will not last long. Give them a call, and 2023 will go better, I promise you. Here's the number, 615-882-4838, 882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. SuperTalk 99.7 WTN, always a lively discussion with Representative Scott Sapicki. It's our legislative roundup once a week. Scott stops by to talk to us about what's happening in the House of Representatives. I'm going to call a slight audible. We'll talk education coming up in just a moment because enough of you want to talk about waste facilities in the Duck River. And as you predicted, Scott, you said that this became a national topic as it was being discussed in the halls of the General Assembly, and it's become a pretty hot topic here today, too. James is in Smyrna. James, you're on with Scott Sapicki and Matt Murphy. Good afternoon.
Hey, Matt. Good talking with you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I live in Smyrna, but I fish the Stones River, around Walter Hill, where they've got the landfill, and I don't eat the fish coming out of there because it's the river around that landfill is green slime coming out of it and going down in the water. I fish it all the time, but if somebody wants to put a landfill on the Duck River, you ought to have them go over and look at that landfill at Walter Hill and see what damage it's doing to the Stone River.
That's a great point, James. Thank you for the call. I mean, I don't know if you've done comparative studies on it, but obviously that's an anecdotal example of exactly what you're talking about.
You're absolutely right. There are multiple landfills in the state of Tennessee that are already leaking into water sources. TDEC's going to come in and make those owners clean that up. The problem is, like you said, the damage is done. How long is it going to take for that water source to clean itself back up naturally, to get to a point where now people aren't looking at green slime floating on the river? Remember with East Palestine, they said that there was no residue and you could light the water on fire. So
you could see the rainbow sheen on top of the water as they were telling us that the water was fine. Which everyone saw that it wasn't. Do you fear at all, and I think I know you well enough to know the answer to this question, but do you fear at all coming off as somehow anti-industry? And you've made the point, I know off air, I don't know if you've said it on air or not, I can't remember, but it's not like you don't recognize that we have to have landfills. It's just a matter of placement, right?
Yeah, you got to place them in a spot that you can control as best you can the ancillary problems that they create, right? TDEC's going to do their monitoring, and it was made a statement in committee that if we put a landfill anywhere, TDEC's going to multiply their monitoring systems. Well, the reason why is because they know the danger of leaking. We know that there is technology out there to help reduce the bulk that's going in the landfills through incineration, through grinding, different techniques, so that you take a landfill right now like Murfreesboro. If we'd have the technology when Murfreesboro's landfill was created umpteen million years ago, that technology today would reduce the amount of bulk going into that landfill where it still might be open and be able to function for another 20, 30 years.
Does Tennessee not consider the concepts like incineration because of some of the past that we've seen? I know that there was one downtown on the Cumberland.
And it ran most of the power downtown. But it was very inefficient back then.
Right, because it just came in before the technology advanced to the point that they could make the efficiencies like we have in 2023.
Right. I mean, we talk about clean coal, right? The scrubbers that we have on the coal plants. Technology allows you to do things that normally would be polluting, that you can clean up to a degree that they're not anymore. And so that's the rub that we have to figure out, especially at the state level, right? We don't have a state income tax, so we don't have no way to give you a tax credit, right? We have to figure out to take these surpluses and how we can put them to use, allowing communities, local governments, to pull some of this money down from the state and figure out, hey, can we get 3 counties to share a grinder that would make a landfill more efficient?
Well, my listeners are accustomed to trash talk on this radio show. But this is a different kind of trash talk today with you, Sapicki. I'll tell you, Patty is in Murfreesboro, and she wants to discuss the very topic. Hey, Patty, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
Murfreesboro, the city of Murfreesboro, has approved annexing some property they bought like 3 years ago on Butler Drive, which is in between 2 interstate exits, the Shelbyville Highway exit and the Joby Jackson exit. And they're going to put an incinerator place on it. And it'll be by Waste Away Company, which has one in Morrison, Tennessee. And it's right on the Stones River where they want to put it. And it's about probably half a mile from like 2 huge subdivisions, apartment complexes. So we're trying to get the word out to fight this.
Do you, who's your representative over there? Do you know, Patty?
On city council or on
state? Well, here's what I would encourage you to do. I would encourage you to find your state representative and to find your state senator and speak to them about the issue. I understand that Sapicki's been a part of this for a long time because he was on the Murray County Commission, and And so he was well aware of this, but maybe your representative is not as aware of it. Maybe they are, and they're on top of it, and they're doing something about it. But maybe communicate with those folks and check back with us and see how they respond. Let us know.
Okay, well, thank you. Good idea.
Yeah,
Thank you.
No doubt. Thank you,
All right.
Patty, for the call. One more on this, and we'll move to education. Ron is in Murfreesboro. We brought up the Murfreesboro landfill. Ron's got a comment. Hey, Ron.
Hey, thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
Today. Yeah, I was just piggybacking on that Murfreesboro landfill out in Walter Hill. I grew up in Murfreesboro, and they've got signs out there all over now that says you can't eat the fish out there because of the carcinogens that have been found in the water and in Stones River. And my concern's always been that river is what feeds Percy Priest Lake, and eventually becomes part of our water supply, our drinking water supply. I know it's treated and everything, but it kind of gets scary after a while what's going to happen, in several years down the road.
Thanks. Let's see if Scott has anything on that.
So, hence the bill that was nothing really is turned into one of the largest bills in the General Assembly. It is the question of water rights. It is the question of clean water. It's the question of protecting an environment to making sure it stays pristine. This is a bill that has really touched the heart of so many people in Tennessee of recognizing, like you just heard in Murfreesboro, right? They're having issues with their water over there, but they're trying to handle it post.
And I'm not taking anything away from the owners or operators of the facilities that we're talking about when I say this, but I guarantee you these citizens were told, as they were debating whether to put this facility where it is, they were told that it wouldn't leak. They were told that they would never have any trouble with their water supply.
Correct.
They were told that they would never have any trouble with fishing. And these are just promises that are next to, if not impossible, to keep.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand we have to deal with what we have now. I mean, that is, pardon the expression, water under the bridge. What you're doing is trying to get in front of it, and you're getting a lot of accolades from the listening audience, and rightly so.
Well, it's not. It's doing what's right, right? Doing what's right for the people, right? We know, and water is going to become an issue in Tennessee, and here's the reason why: of how many people are moving here. It's Columbia Power and Water is going to spend $100 million to put a new intake on the Duck River to withdraw water because it's growing so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Water is going to become an issue that's going to slow us down in Tennessee because you got to have more water for more people. There's only there's a finite amount of water flowing through our rivers. It's not inexhaustible. It's a certain flow rate. And so as you draw more and more out of it, you start to affect the flow rate. But here's the problem. As we draw more water out in Murray County, what happens downstream?
They need it too.
They need it too. And so it becomes a fine balance. And here's what's funny is back in the 70s, in Murray County, the federal government proposed with TVA to put a dam on the Duck River for flood control.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was completed to the point where they found an endangered species called the snail darter, and everybody in southern middle Tennessee is going, yep. They tore down a dam. They tore a dam down in Murray County because they found an endangered species. That's how important this whole issue is.
Do you know how many golf balls I've lost because of the snail darter? I'll tell you that story in a second. 131, SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Quick timeout, back in a moment. Talk education with Scott Sapicki after this. You know, I tell you, it's a crazy time when it comes to mortgage rates. It's a crazy time when it comes to interest rates. I mean, you saw the 0.25 percentage point that went up just yesterday. And I experienced it with my own family. I was trying to work a refinance of my camper and whatnot, and I felt the pinch of the interest rates as well. If you're looking to buy or sell your home, if you're looking to refinance your home, there are still options available for you. And I don't want you to just shut it down. I want you to call Mike, Joe, Heino, or any of the rest of the crew at Accurate Mortgage Group. They're here for you. They're local. That's important to me. I mean, I understand there's a lot of telephone numbers that you could call. I understand there's a lot of people you can talk to on the phone. I like sitting down with somebody, looking them in the eye. It gives me a sense of confidence that they know what they're doing, that they're not just reading off a script. And you can go to Cool Springs and sit down with a group at Accurate Mortgage Group and speak with them directly. Now, if you want to do everything on the phone, you can do that too. They have incredible programs like the Payment Reduction Program that offers you a lower payment for the first 2 years of your fixed rate mortgage, still a fixed rate. They also have the Accurate Mortgage Cash Out Refinance that gives you cash out so you can pay off higher interest credit card bills. And yes, that's still possible. They're never going to advise you to do something that is not in your best financial interest. And that's what I trust about Accurate Mortgage Group. Accurate Mortgage, give them a call today. They are a division of Acopia LLC, an equal housing lender, NMLS 4664. You can find them online at AccurateMTG.com. That's AccurateMTG.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Winkler. The financial world can be full of landmines for investors. On the one hand, investment firms and the financial community will often overcomplicate the financial planning process to confuse investors. As one guy who used to work a big investment firm once told me, if an investor thinks that they're over their head, they'll blindly trust you. And it's easier to sell to them. I'm glad I'm away from that. On the other hand, many people oversimplify investing to the detriment of investors. Just having a little knowledge can be really dangerous. The idea there is the same. It's just a different way of selling things. At Paul Winkler Inc., we like working alongside our clients with an education guidance approach. I believe that there's confidence that comes with knowing what you're doing and why. We abide by the very highest level of fiduciary care, and we use the most sophisticated financial planning tools out there. And every one of our offices is run by a degreed planner with over 20 years experience. No kids fresh out of college. If that sounds like a winning formula, set up a free 15-minute phone call to learn more. Go to paulwinkler.com or call 615-851-1950. You can do this.
All right, SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Thank you so much for spending time with us on a day-to-day basis, noon until 3. The Drive with Brian Wilson coming up after us from 3 until 7 o'clock, a part of information-fueled and opinion-driven News Talk Radio on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. 137, we continue our good conversation with Representative Scott Sapicki. We'll put the Duck River aside. I believe this is a no-brainer. I know you don't count chickens before they hatch, but get it to the full House, get the thing passed, get it to the governor, make it happen, and I think the people of Murray County will breathe a sigh of relief once this happens.
That's what we're hoping for, and then we will start to figure out how we're going to handle trash.
And once again, I mean, nobody's against everybody if we lived in a world where we didn't have to have landfills, that'd be great. But we don't. and you live in the real world, I live in the real world. You got to put it somewhere,
Right.
Just not near the Duck River.
Right, and use technology to make it as small as possible.
Third grade retention.
Yes.
Where are we?
That bill passed the Education Administration Committee as a full. It's on to government operations. It'll go from government operations to finance. Very important piece of legislation passed today in the House. It was House Bill 68. Remember, we talked about allowing the expansion of the summer school and tutoring down to kindergarten? That was in House Bill 68 to pay for it. That's in the governor's bill. So now we have the funding mechanism for our retention bill that we can increase those supports for kids down to kindergarten to make sure that if they're retained in kindergarten, they can go to summer school and they can get the tutoring they need to get on grade level. The other portion of that bill that has to deal with another data point to look at a kid to show that they are able to do the work that we want in third grade. Not to get into weeds here, but we're going to use the last universal screener given as a test. If the student scores in the 50th percentile or higher, along with approaching on TCAP, you can send them to the next grade level. Just give them the additional supports that give them an option of summer school and tutoring to make sure that we get them to a point that they are on a solid foundation educationally.
And you're happy with this?
Yes, yeah. I think we have addressed the issues that we've identified from the original bill, and I think these are common sense. The governor's staff and the Senate have all come together on this, and we all have the same language. We are all agreeing, which sometimes doesn't always happen, but we're in a good place on this bill. We just got to keep moving it forward.
Where outside of that, let me ask you this. What's the time frame? When will parents start seeing a change? When will teachers start seeing a change structurally from this legislation?
It'll probably start as they're getting ready to take the TCAPS test this year. And then those other interventions will start to flow in for the 23-24 school year. You'll see the number of kids involved in summer school, the learning camps, and tutoring really start to escalate. We are looking for as many people as we can, Matt, to volunteer in K through 3 to learn to be a tutor with these kids.
Mm-hmm.
You want to change someone's life, teach them how to read. That's the key. And these kids that we have, we need as many as we get. We're experimenting with possibly allowing state employees to use some paid time off to go and be tutors in our K through 3 elementary in our schools.
How much have you? Speaking of children, I have a weekly guest, Cameron Smith, who's a friend of mine. He also writes for the Tennessean. He's one of the few self-described conservatives over there, the Tennessean left. But he has adopted a young man, 16 years old, from Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And I have such great admiration for Cameron. He has 3 other boys, and he adopted a young man to try to pull him out of a very, very negative situation. And he has some intimate dealings with the Department of Children's Services. A lot of frustration.
Yes.
How much have you followed this? And I understand this is it. It's not unique. I overuse that word, but it is a set of special circumstances. It's where government, which by definition, government tends to do things inefficiently, trying to repair very, very negative family dynamics and trying to protect the children and do it as best as it can. And obviously there's some deficiencies in the system as it exists. What do you believe we can do to repair them?
So you kind of hit on the head there. Government is very cumbersome, right? It's very difficult to the common sense practices of the free market normally don't happen in government. One of the ways that we're helping to solve this DCS problem is working with more private-public partnerships. There are groups out there, youth villages, and other places like that do that take these children from DCS custody and put them in an environment that, one, is stable for them. Number 2, they're not worried about where their next meal's coming from. They have a bed to sleep in, right? That you bring some stability so that you take those stresses off the child, and then you start focusing on education with them. The speaker has a bill that I'm supporting right now that what it does is create these dormitory environments for charter schools, that these charter schools can get these kids from DCS custody that are in bad situations and put them into these dormitory schools that stabilize their lives so that we can focus on getting them educated and turn the life around. Don't just put them in a situation that keeps them safe for the day. Put them in a situation that keeps them safe ongoing and allows them to focus on turning their life around through education.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. But and how long does it take to get that turnaround happening?
Well, it's as quick as we can get the money sent out to those private partnerships. We increase the funding to those private partners that handle a lot of our issues right now. to be able to pay people more to keep them on staff. We know the problem we have right now is the workforce. I know this from a fact. I know there's a fast food restaurant in Murray County that the people going through the drive food are making probably $17 to $20 an hour. $17 to $20 an hour because that's the market now. Right. It is such a shortage of people.
And the state has to shift their pay frame.
Right. And that's
accordingly.
And that's why the governor's bill on increasing the minimum salary for teachers going from $37,000 to $50,000 in 3 years, that's going to create more opportunity for people to get an education. We have classrooms right now. We have gone through almost the whole school year. We're in March, right? Mm-hmm. We've gone through almost the whole school year, and there are classrooms in the state of Tennessee that haven't had a teacher the whole year. How much have those kids learned?
What, substitute?
Just substitutes.
Because you can't fill the...
We don't have enough teachers. We are looking at incentivizing people from other states to move here, possibly paying for a teacher's moving expenses to come here and set up shop.
You can do it like the troopers. Didn't the governor do this with the troopers?
We've got to think. Now, here's the good thing we got going for us. If you're in California and you're a teacher making $50,000, $60,000, right?
Yeah, what you bringing home?
Right. You come to Tennessee, just moving, you've given yourself a pay raise.
Hey, trust me, when I was negotiating my contract, Scott, my bosses told me that quite a bit. Say, hey, you're getting whatever $1,000 a year in a pay raise just because of no state income. I mean, it is a benefit. I kid, but it's a benefit.
But it is because you're doing if you're a teacher in California or a teacher in Tennessee, you're teaching. Same amount of class time, right? 180 days. But because you don't pay state income tax, you're getting a pay raise. So just doing the same job and moving your zip code, you're making more money. By the way,
you add to that the increases that we're talking about.
That is
and
huge.
It matters.
And I think we're not done with that. I know the governor believes that we have got to get to a point where, number one, you are paying teachers because they are shaping the future of our country, right? You got to have good quality teachers. We got to have enough teachers that when a job opening is created, we've got 30, 40 people wanting that job.
So let me shift attention to a few other matters. Choice lanes.
Yes.
Spoke with Jock Johnson about it a little bit. He feels like this is moving forward well. I mean, are you – I know we've talked about it in the past, but I've talked to so many. Where are you on this? Are you comfortable with it?
Yeah, I think I've gotten to a point. I've seen the legislation. I know what it is. We're not putting toll roads out there. Whatever roads you're driving on right now, quote unquote, will still be free, right? There's going to be no tolls on 65 or 24. It's not going to happen, right? But what we're doing is we're trying to alleviate an issue that is starting to become a problem. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia.
I didn't know you lived in Atlanta. I did too.
And I can tell you this. I lived 12 miles from work, and it took me 2.5 hours to get there.
It is brutal.
It's brutal.
In ATL.
And that's taking away from quality time with your family. That's 5 hours a day you're just parked in a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to get ahead of this. Government is actually doing something proactive here. We're trying to get ahead of this. Now, is it the solution? No. I brought with me, because I asked you today, we put $300 million into the budget this year for locals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you said you live in Wilson County, right?
I do.
So I just brought this with me, hot off the presses from TDAT. Our state aid for your county alone, we're going to give your county money, is $4.6 million to help on their local infrastructure.
All right.
Bridges, roads.
Get that Costco in place in Mount Juliet. Let's go.
Not that.
There's got to be a road there.
But it's proportional, right? So Davidson County is going to get 11.2. They have more roads to maintain.
Right, sure.
And so
consistent with the amount of population, amount of roadways.
So
right?
This is a way that we have the ability to take surpluses and give it back to the communities.
And I'm joking around while you're being serious about this is not just, and people need to know, this package is not just for the metropolitan areas. It's not just for Nashville. No. It's not just for Knoxville. It's not just for Memphis. And you're bringing that out, that it is for the rural communities as well. Now, obviously, they're going to get less money because they have fewer roads, et cetera.
Like Granger County, they're going to get $2.5 million. But in relationship to their budget, that's a big investment.
Well, while we're on the subject of roads, let's find out where you are on this, because I was picking on the morning show because we got 3 fuddy-duddies on the morning show. Dan Mandis, Johnny B, and Ken Weaver.
Well, I know the last 2. Who's the first guy?
Dan Mandis, believe it or not.
Is he new?
Yeah, I think so. I think we just pulled him in for, somewhere. Denver, California. He's California.
Kidding.
And those 3 guys were on the front porch talking about these whippersnappers going too fast on the road. They're talking about increasing speed limit.
Yes.
Is this something that's going to be seriously considered by the General Assembly?
I mean, do people not drive 75 now?
Yes, they do.
Trust me, I'm going 70-ish more, and they're passing me.
Well, and here's what I would say. I'm all for it because I've seen the studies where you compare accidents at 70 miles an hour and 75 miles an hour, and the amount of damage is negligible. I mean, and the rate of fatalities, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
You don't see much difference.
Right.
But what I would ask is, and I know this is a lot because it's not like we have troopers falling out of the trunks of vehicles or whatever, but is a little more enforcement on those people that are lane hopping and those individuals that are going 95. I mean, I get it. I do it. I'm lying if I say I didn't.
Sure.
But there are people on our roads that are going way beyond the speed limit.
You're correct. I think what you'll probably see is some kind of compromise. And if you'll follow me, I'll probably give it to you. So from downtown Nashville to probably Murfreesboro, right? Probably 65, maybe 70 miles an hour. When you get past Murfreesboro, it'll probably bump up to 70, 75 between Murfreesboro and maybe Chattanooga, right? Those areas where there's less traffic, less distractions, less things that can happen in traffic, because the numbers in the traffic go way down. You see it out west all the time. If you drive out west at all, you'll see where there's some places that don't have any speed limit because there's nothing but antelope out there.
Montana.
It's just,
I think in many places in Montana, during the day, they have nighttime speed limits, but during the day, they don't worry about it because it's so rural.
It's so rural, and you're going to hurt yourself.
Right.
So I think what you'll see is maybe as you get further away from the larger metropolitan areas, that speed limit will probably bump to 75, right?
Finally, are you comfortable with the abortion bill that came out of the House?
Yeah, boy, when that first one came out, we were not happy at all. I mean, the General Assembly, just from talking to members, a lot of consternation on that bill. And so they pulled it back. They looked at it. They got Tennessee Right to Life involved. They got the speakers involved and looked at this thing and said, what are we trying to accomplish here, right? And I think that they accomplished the task. Leader Johnson, he talked about it. I think he did a great job explaining about what it does. It's mostly clarifying language, making sure that the intent is if we have the ability to save the life of a woman, but you have to take every effort to save that baby also.
It's one of those issues that, common sense should prevail and any reading of the law, but you have to look for loopholes. You have to look for the cracks in the law because that there will be some entities that try to exploit those. Is that a fair analysis?
That's fair. Hindsight's always 20/20, right? Like this retention bill we passed a couple years ago. Well, now we're seeing, we missed a couple things we got to fix, right? I'll tell you what, and I have friends all over this country in legislatures that we converse all the time, and they tell us all the time, if we could just run the country like you run Tennessee, it'd be so much better here. And so, we talk to each other, we work with each other, we work across the aisle when it's possible. Sometimes you're too far apart, you can't get there, but at least we hear.
You can't work with Gloria Johnson? Come on.
I will tell you this. I am much appreciative for Representative Johnson because she's a co-sponsor of the Duck River bill.
Is she now? Well, I mean, look, if you and Gloria can get along on something, you must have something right going.
You may be hearing trumpets.
You know how much we appreciate you spending some time with us on Thursdays.
It's my pleasure.
Representative Scott Sapiggy with us. We'll wrap the hour up and get to hour number 2. We'll talk about the speed limit bill, and I'm going to get your temperature on it. And I'm also going to talk to you about your phone because I think you're addicted to something that you don't realize you're addicted to. And we'll talk about it in the 2 o'clock hour. It's 1:51 on SuperTalk. That's going to wrap up hour number 2, but never you fear, we have a third hour to go to include a question for you, actually 2. 1, do you agree with raising the speed limit on Tennessee roads? Super text or call in. Number 2, are you addicted to your phone? And what are you willing to do about it? I know I am.
Yes.
Are you? I think all of us are to a certain degree, unless you have somehow avoided that addiction. And I'd like to hear from you if that's the case. We'll get Mac Morey in the newsroom on it, and we'll talk about it in hour number 2. Mac Morey's got the headlines right now on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
It's 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 76 degrees and a cloudy day in Nashville, but still very, very nice outside. A little bit of breeze picking up as we're expecting some severe weather on later tomorrow in the form of harsh line winds and heavy rain. Weather coming up in just a few minutes. Nashville detectives are investigating an apparent murder-suicide at Antioch that happened this morning. Authorities say it appears a 42-year-old man fatally shot his 37-year-old wife before fatally shooting himself. The shooting happened in the Pepper Tree Forest subdivision in Antioch. We'll keep you updated as that information comes out on that story right here on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. President Biden today hosting an event celebrating 13 years since the passing of the Affordable Care Act, achieved under the leadership of President Obama.
Declaring that health care is a right, not a privilege, President Biden today marked the 13th anniversary of the signing of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare.
We made history when the Affordable Care Act became law. We changed America. We gave millions of people peace of mind.
The president said because of this legislation, 40 million Americans have been able to enroll in affordable health care plans, and millions have gained access to critical services like cancer screenings and mental health treatment.
And some new numbers on child autism in the United States. Derek Dennis.
A growing number of children are being diagnosed with autism in the U.S., but that doesn't mean autism itself is on the rise. Instead, CDC researchers say it's likely doctors, parents, and communities are getting better at diagnosing children, especially among Black, Hispanic, and Asian Americans. All races saw more cases, but researchers say in 2020, for the first time, the percentage of Black, Hispanic, and Asian children diagnosed with autism exceeded that of white children. The CDC says early diagnosis is critical to help kids with autism get the resources they need to reach their full potential.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Here we go. Hour number 3 of the Matt Murphy Radio Show gets started. It's 2:05, and glad to have you with us on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. It's our episode 304. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. We're here for 3 hours, but whatever time you give us, we're appreciative of that. The Drive coming up at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Information-fueled and opinion-driven news talk radio all day long, starting with Mandis, going through Del Giorno, yours truly, and then the one and only Brian Wilson. Okay, let's get into this issue involving speed limits, shall we? By the way, before I do that, a beautiful day today, but rain coming back tomorrow, and tomorrow evening we're being told by various weather folk that we could expect some nasty weather coming into the community. So if you're out and about, if you're going to John Wick 4 later on tomorrow night, you might want to watch out for that. Are you hello, Mac Morey.
Hello. Good afternoon, Matt.
Can I tell you something, Mac?
Yes, sir.
Unlike Mason, I miss you when you're not here.
Come on.
You see,
he didn't deserve that.
Right through that compliment to you, there was an insult to him. You see what I did there? Young Mason on the board, making sure that he understands the controls in there. How you doing there, buddy?
I'm doing all right.
He's killing it.
You know, you have there's nothing but praise for you so far. And I think it's really setting you up for something awful down the road.
I'm going to take it like tomorrow at 9 a.m.
I mean, the first mistake, it's just going to be, it's going to be awful.
Yeah, he's on his own tomorrow. First time.
What?
Yep, working the Del Giorno show all by myself.
Yep.
Good luck.
I know, right?
Oh boy, you're not going to be here.
I will not be in the room.
How many?
No.
Are you off?
No. You can't. This was last year. You can't carry over a bit. You can't carry over a bit from last year. It's a new year. I'm not taking days off.
Of these stupid musical festivals are there for you to go to? Are you off tomorrow?
I am off tomorrow, but I'm doing adult things.
Wait a minute. What does that mean? Like
going to the bank. I'm getting an oil change. I'm going to get my taxes prepared. Things like that.
Oh, adult things.
The adult things.
How about a haircut?
No, that is childish.
No, I think I'm talking to the wrong group in there. Actually, I'm part of the wrong group.
Yeah, I was about to say, come on.
I mean, we are the long hairs, the four of us right here. Weber's in the corner, Mason there. You got the I don't know what are you doing there? Is that perm?
I don't know.
What are you doing?
It's all natural.
What are you doing?
All natural.
I got a perm in high school. I'll tell you about that story one time. That was a mistake. I thought kids were cruel before the perm.
Oh, they stepped it up.
Oh, my gosh. They got talking to. You have not, I don't think, Maury, you've cut your hair since I've known you.
Maybe one little trim, but you wouldn't have noticed. Yep.
What are you, is this, and I get asked this all the time. I get asked, what are you doing? Mostly it's from my wife.
Yeah,
what are you doing here?
What are you doing?
And I respond, it's one of my favorite lines in all of cinema. Eventually, it'll end up on our board behind me.
Yes.
Do I look like a guy that has a plan? From the fabulous feature film The Dark Knight.
Yes.
Do I look like a guy that's got a plan? And that's how I answer the question about my hair. So I'll ask you, do you have a plan there, Maury?
No, I was thinking about, I used to have it super short in college when I was doing TV and news and stuff like that. But
I saw a clip of you.
Yeah?
Did you put that out? I saw a clip of you doing a sports hit.
Oh, yeah, probably from college. I don't think I would have shared that, no.
How did I see it then?
Momo Mori.
Mama Maury probably gave it to me. That's true.
Yeah, that would be it.
You were you look great. You had short hair. I mean, you look professional. You were in a suit. And then you came in to talk radio and this happened to you.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm going to grow it back out.
You know, you got the long hair. You're slovenly. You've got a stack of contributors there next to you for $2 each. I don't know what you're doing.
Hannah likes the long hair too, so I'm kind of stuck in this now.
Well, I'll shut up now because that ends that discussion. No, you look great. I'm kidding. I kid. Don't give me the business. I kid. Larry's already saying only a UGA guy would get a perm. It was my best friend bet me that I wouldn't do it, and I did it because I had long straight hair, and I did it. And,
I double dog dare you.
And it was the same. It was the same week. Believe it or not, they were searching for answers back in the day at Thompson High School, and I somehow became a senior superlative. Guess what I was? You know what a senior superlative is? They probably don't have these anymore because you kids, everybody's got to be equal and yada, yada, yada.
Oh, yeah. We had superlatives. Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like and guess what I got? I wanted most likely to succeed. Greg Chalker got most likely to succeed. And Greg, well, actually, that was prophetic because Greg is now like a corporate CEO with Visa.
Wow. So, okay, they called it. So that one
they
worked
called
out.
that one right. I got.
What was yours? Yeah, wait, what was yours?
I don't want to tell you.
You brought it up. You got to share.
Yeah, now you have to do it.
Wittiest.
That's not bad.
Yeah, wittiest. I felt like it was just a throwaway. Give him wittiest. You need to give him something, otherwise he'll complain.
How many were in your graduating class, though?
That's a good question, man. 500.
Oh, okay.
It's a pretty big school.
I was
going to
say that's bigger.
It was a
That's
big
bigger
school.
than I went to.
I mean, we had almost 2,000 in our high school, so it's a pretty big school.
I got best personality. So.
Well, they got that wrong.
Ridiculous.
Why am I so mean to you?
Antagonistic.
There is zero reason for me to be mean to either of you.
I think we need to do
mic off.
I like both of you.
I think we need to do a throwback week next week where you come in with a perm. We can make fun of you next week.
It would look very much like your hair looks right now.
That's why I'm off camera.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying your hair looks bad. I'm saying that's what happens.
Your hair looks great.
I need a haircut, man. It looks rough. It's rough.
I know a guy out in Mount Juliet. Good guy.
I was like, I have a barber. We haven't talked to each other in a while.
Well, come on, let's go do it. Do they do? Someone on the super text line might know this. Are you allowed at barbershops to use straight razors to shave an individual? It was odd to me in Alabama. They made it illegal during the 1980s to use, because you reuse the razors, and there was the scare of the AIDS epidemic.
Yep.
And so they made it so you had to use disposable razors in barbershops to shave, which kind of goes against the concept of the straight razor. Because if you've ever had one, there's nothing like it in the world. It's almost and I say this in the most masculine way possible. It's almost sensual.
It's an intimate,
I mean, it just, yes. Yeah. I mean, the heat, because they put a towel there, and then they put the hot lather on you, and they get it lathered up, and then they get the straight razor and get the strap going, and it's just incredible. You've done it, Mason?
Yeah. I've had it done on my face, and then they always line up the back of my neck doing that at my barbershop. And
see, I dig that too.
Yeah.
The old neck shave.
Could they do it for, a guy like a bare-skinned man like myself?
Can you grow nothing?
I mean, not really, no.
I'm not one to talk. I mean, mine looks like rats have gotten onto my face.
You've got something going on.
Well, I've got something going on. It's not a beard. It's not a goatee. It's something. I don't know what it is, but it's something. All right, let's get into something that doesn't have to do with shaving and whatnot. But I know a guy in Mount J. If you don't know a guy, you know a guy. But if you don't know a guy, I know a guy. I met him. Great guy. Called the Man Cave, I want to say.
Is this the bourbon place that you like?
No. This is a different joint.
Is that over on Mount Juliet Road?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think the guy's name is Brian. I think that's right.
It's like I've never been there, but I think I know the place. It's in that new strip. That's
Yeah. No. It's a great place, and I've got to go back prior to our big event, which is what I want to tell you about. So, big event 1 week from today. Mac Morey will not be there because he's working. Chris Webber will not be there because he's working. Mason may or may not be there, but I will be. And all the rest of the crew will be, absent Ken Weaver because he's on vacation. But other than those guys, we'll be there in Murfreesboro at the Parthenon Grill and would love to see you. All you need to do, just do me a favor, because Mandis is on me. He said, Murphy, we get the least amount of tickets ordered during your show than any other show on the radio station, and so I need your help. A personal favor. Would you just go to 997WTN.com and sign up to go to this event today? And when you get there, tell Mandis that you did it for me. Would you do that for me? It might save me a couple of months of radio time. So you go to 997WTN.com, sign up for the event. Like I say, your food will be included. One drink at least will be included. And heck, I might buy you another drink if you tell them that you came for me. It is our big event, our get-together, for no other reason, just because we want to see you. It is in Murfreesboro at the Parthenon Grill, 6 o'clock. The proceedings start before then. I mean, Brian's doing his entire show from down there, and the rest of the crew take over at about 6 o'clock. From 6 until 8, it's the WTN gang and you in Murfreesboro at the Parthenon Grill. So there are conversations ongoing. Now, no one expects any of this to happen this year because it has been tabled in the Senate. Senator Janice Bowling, who will be joining us tomorrow at 12:30 to talk about the failure of her medical marijuana bill, to talk about the failure of her sovereignty bill, and to talk about the failure of her speed limit bill. I mean, Janice Bowling is not a failure, but, well, those three things did. She introduced legislation that would allow for higher speed limits on, quote, controlled access state and interstate highways with 4 or more lanes. That would be 2 going one way and 2 going the other way, one would think. Divided highway. The legislation has stalled until at least 2024 because it was deferred in the Senate. However, AAA is wasting no time in pushing back, and according to WKRN.com and AAA, according to their survey, drivers don't want this either. According to a 2022 traffic survey conducted by AAA, 57% of residents say they're very concerned about speed and speeding drivers when it comes to keeping roadways safe. Well, hold on a second, AAA. Let's get into the meat of it. According to Megan Cooper, who is a spokesperson with AAA, she says, or he, I don't know which. I guess there could be a guy, Megan, right? Oh, who knows? I don't know anymore. Based on AAA research and other traffic safety organizations, research showing as you increase the speed limit, you also see an increase in fatality rates. And when those crashes do occur, a lot of times they are more severe. According to 2022 traffic survey data, residents drive over the posted speed limit for 3 different reasons. 1, 69% say they do so to keep up with the flow of traffic. 2, 36% say they do so because there isn't a lot of traffic on the roadways. Number 3, 35% of drivers say they speed because they don't consider driving a few miles over the speed limit as speeding. Despite what's currently law, data from AAA says that more than half the drivers already feel comfortable going at least 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. 53% were okay with it. 23% were okay with driving 10 miles an hour over. Only 13% felt comfortable driving the posted speed limit. Hundreds of bills up for debate, but this is one that I'm curious your thoughts on. Where are you on the idea of, now obviously we're not proposing that you increase the speed limit necessarily in the midst of Nashville, Tennessee, on the loop, right? Or anywhere near a metro region like Knoxville or Memphis or Chattanooga. But in the rural areas, on I-40, on 24, on 65, would it not make sense to allow for drivers to go 75 miles an hour or 80 miles an hour? Now, I have seen multiple studies that indicate that if a traffic accident occurs at a speed of 70 miles an hour and one occurs at a speed of 75 miles an hour, the rate of fatality between those two is not very different. In other words, if you get into an accident at 70, sadly, there's a likelihood that you could die, just as there is at 75. And that likelihood doesn't change very much at those two speeds. So this would apply mostly to more rural areas on our interstate highways, but I'm curious where you are on this. I've been in states, I think New Mexico, I think I'm right in this. I go to New Mexico quite a bit because my wife has family there. And driving in New Mexico is a different deal. If you've never driven out west, I'll tell you a quick story. So about 10 years ago or so, my father-in-law and I were doing the driving on the 20-plus hour trip to Roswell, New Mexico, where my wife was born and where a lot of her aunts and uncles still live. And let me tell you, when you get past Dallas, that becomes big country very quickly. When you get to New Mexico, you will crest hills in New Mexico where you're on a straight piece of road and you crest a hill, and as far as you can see in the sight line, you see a straight road until it disappears in the distance. There's no reason to have curves because there's nothing out there but desert land. So my father-in-law, now understand, the wife and my mother-in-law were not about this at all. But he got a new Garmin. Remember the Garmins that had the maps on them? This is before maps on your computer screen in your car. And it had a max speed on it. It had a little feature called max speed, which until you reset it, it would tell you the highest speed that you had gone during that particular trip. So Bob starts driving first. And of course, we're going. And it's hour, and people are sleeping, taking naps or whatever. And we stop for gas and we do the transition. And Bob kind of nodded and shows me where he got up to 92 miles an hour at one point. By the way, I'm not promoting what I'm about to tell you as something that anyone should ever do. I'm just reporting the news. So, understand, we had two in the back seat that were very sensitive to fast rates of speed, okay? And anytime they became aware that you were going any amount over the speed limit, there would be, how do I put this, squawking coming out of the back seat. So it was a delicate procedure. You had to figure out when. Obviously, you have to deal with your surroundings. You have to make sure that you're not a danger to yourself or others. And you have to make sure that you don't get anything coming out of the back seat. So I, during my driving stint, got it up to 98 miles an hour before voices in the back seat told me that I needed to slow the bleep down. So we incrementally escalated this until we got to New Mexico. This was day 2 of our trip. And I think the max speed on the Garmin at that point was 102. Once again, I'm not promoting any of this. You don't even know if I'm telling you the truth. I could be making up this entire story and you don't know. So Bob gets in the driver's seat and we're in a Pacifica. You know what that is, like a minivan, Chrysler Pacifica. And at some point, I noticed that the ladies in the back seat had fallen asleep, and I fell asleep. And I woke up. And when I woke up, Bob's grinning like a mule eating briars. And I was like, what are you grinning about? And he kind of nodded toward the Garmin. And he said, it's not going any faster than that. 121 in a Chrysler Pacifica. He said, that's all she's got. And I said, you win. You win. Where do you want the speed limit to be? We'll take your calls coming up in a moment. It's SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
Governor Lee gave his goals for the Nashville area to the city's Chamber of Commerce today, and we follow up on the school shooting that happened in Denver yesterday morning, plus severe weather to look at tomorrow night. That and more all 30 minutes after the hour right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, see, you get none of my bumper, Maury.
Yeah. What was that?
Uh-huh.
It's all for you.
You get I get this. You get silence. By the way, do you have access to the super text line in your room?
Yeah, I do. Let me log in real quick.
All right. You log in, and Jason has a recommendation for how you can grow hair on your chinny chin chin that I cannot repeat on the radio. So you'll just have to look that up in your own time and tell me if that's something that.
What's his name? Jason?
His name's Jason. 0674. You got that?
Sounds good.
Does that sound good to you?
That sounds good.
Okay, let Jason and I look, folks. That's so wrong. That is rule number 1. Don't do that inside type of joke that you can't. I can't repeat that.
No. I cannot.
I cannot repeat what Jason is recommending you do to grow hair on your chin. But apparently, if you do it, you'll grow a beard like Ken Weaver.
Like Mr. Ken Weaver. Man, I did not know Ken's tactics.
Apparently, Jason is well aware of them and is a fan, one would think. All right, so where are you on speed limits? Patrick is in Smyrna, and he joins us next on the Matt Murphy Show. Patrick, what do you think about this? Hey, Pat.
I think I know what you're talking about, and I'm a fan, so hey,
whatever works, Maury.
Lady Garden, go.
Easy, Patrick.
Hey, speed limit rule areas, yeah, man, jack it up. Around Austin, they did a bypass years ago. Enters north side of Austin at Georgetown, goes around to Austin to the south side, almost to San Marcos, but it's like 80 out there. It's called Texas 130. And, man, it's a drag strip out there. It's fantastic. But semis go out there and avoid going through town, because they get to where they're going quicker. But you can go out there and have yourself a good old drag race. But the one thing I'll tell you they need to do, especially on 24, between you can pick any stretch, but I did this a few years ago, between Smyrna and the first exit into Murfreesboro, which is Medical Center Parkway. You want to guess how many HOV signs there are attached to the median in the middle, distracting you? Guess.
I don't know, Patrick.
There are over 70.
What?
And it's only a couple miles. I actually emailed TDOT about it, and the answer I got was, well, it was kind of tied to a federal grant. We had to have so many signs up, so we just jammed them all into that one space.
Huh.
I counted them one day, and I think I counted over 100. It's at least 70. Do it. 66, exit 66 in Smyrna. Keep going toward Murfreesboro to the Medical Center Parkway exit, which is really the first big exit to the borough. You count the HOV signs that are attached to the median between the east and west lanes. It'll blow your mind how many damn signs there are for that. And there's never been enforcement on HOV for years. It's been there since 2005. They've never enforced it.
I will say, and I don't need the white hot spotlight on me or my GMC pickup, but I have just ignored the HOV requirements, and nobody said a word to me. I mean, I've had no issues. I drive in that lane if I need to.
Yeah.
And if that makes me a bad person, so be it. But it is what it is. 70. So what you're saying is they had to do that per federal requirement because of some sort of funding, and they just put them all there?
Yeah, jammed a whole bunch right in there. I noticed it. I'm like, okay, perfect. Government work at its finest once again.
I would have greater respect for that, Patrick, if they, had done it like one of the old Wile E. Coyote cartoons where it's like, hey, this is HOV lane. Seriously, hey, we're not kidding. Hey, man, like a continuation of the message as you go along.
That's right.
All right, man. Appreciate it. All right, see you. We'll hold it down. Thanks, Patrick, for the call. A lot of you responding on Super Text, and we'll get to a few of those responses as well. Plus, Anthony Fauci has a new documentary that fails famously. I want to tell you about that. And I admit that I'm addicted to my phone and I don't know what to do about it. I have a couple of ideas that I want to run by you. It's 2:31 on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
$2:32. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 76 degrees and a cloudy day in Nashville. These clouds are a sign of what's to come tomorrow evening into Saturday, expecting some severe weather. We'll keep you updated with it all right here, though, on 99.7 SuperTalk WTN. Weather coming up in just a few minutes. Governor Lee gave his goals for the Nashville area to the city's Chamber of Commerce today. The chamber said 3 things are most important to them: livability, creating jobs, and developing workforce. They noted that if everyone in the city's region was employed, there would still be 30,000 jobs that needed filled. His administration is proposing $1 billion to the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, plus increasing pay incentives for teaching positions. The governor's whole plan was to create easier pathways for skilled workers to become employed. And after this week's shooting of 2 school administrators in Denver, police say an armed student yesterday, all Denver public schools will have the day off. Here's Alex Stone.
Calling it a mental health day, the Denver Public School District is canceling classes at all campuses on Friday. The district saying everybody needs a moment to pause and process a series of challenging events, including this week's shooting and a data breach this year. In a letter to school leaders, a superintendent highlights the importance of mental health, emotional well-being, and community support.
And the body of the alleged shooter, 17-year-old Austin Lyle, was found in a park later on in a wooded area later last night. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Tennessee Men's Clinic now has 2 locations to serve you. This is a big deal, folks, because many of you in Columbia, Spring Hill, areas south of my voice, perhaps you were hesitant to make an appointment with Tennessee Men's Clinic because you didn't want to come in downtown. Well, they still have their location right downtown Nashville, convenient to all areas within the sound of my voice. But here's the deal. They got a new location in Cool Springs. Find out more about that when you go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com and find out about your journey to better health, more energy through increased testosterone levels. Here's the deal, gentlemen. Testosterone goes down naturally over time during the course of your life, but we've seen over the last 40 years, statistically, men's testosterone has been lower and lower and lower earlier in age. If you're a victim, you could find yourself with a lack of energy and, yes, even a lack of bedroom drive. I'm here to solve that. Actually, I'm here to tell you who can. Tennessee Men's Clinic. Go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com to find out how for less than $100 you'll get a complete first examination. They'll take some blood from you. They'll get some numbers for you, and then we'll set you on a path of success with increased testosterone levels and increased energy as a result. Tennessee Men's Clinic, or give them a call for locations, 2 now, 1 downtown and 1 in Cool Springs. 615-208-9090, 208-9090. It is SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you. Mac Maury back in the newsroom. Mason running the controls right now. Chris Webber observing, anticipating the drive at 3 o'clock. All of us are, really. We'll get to your calls. Prior to that, we're discussing the speed limit in the final hour of the show today and whether or not you would be agreeable to an increase in Tennessee's speed limit. Now, understand something. I'm not a Pollyanna. I get it. We all know that people drive faster than 70. I drive faster than 70. I admit it. I don't say that with any sense of pride. I just know that I do it. And you, if you ever drive with me from Mount Juliet to our downtown studios every day, you know it as well. We're popping off 80 miles an hour right around the airport, maybe even 82, 83. So I understand that if you raise the speed limit, that the amount of speed that people are going to carry over that speed limit goes up as well. I get that. A lot of you are talking about that. And I'll just run down a few comments. Jesse writes in and says, I think speeding should be treated like drinking and driving. If you're ever caught 20 miles an hour over the speed limit, you should have to run a tractor for your next vehicle for 2 years to monitor your speed. Oh, no, wait, a tracker, not a tractor. I thought Jesse was saying that you should be made to drive. I think you should be made to drive a tractor. That might be more of a deterrent. Michael says, put a resistor on it. Matt, we had a Park Avenue a few years ago. My wife would wake up and say, Mike, you're going 115 miles an hour. I would say, I didn't realize that I was going 115 miles an hour. We were headed to Tunica, Mississippi. Happened to me more than once. Yeah, I think Bob hit the limiter on the Pacifica. That's what happened there. 121. He must have been going downhill. I bet it set at 120, and he happened to get another mile an hour out of it. And I also got a super text from someone that told me that back in the day, those Garmins with the max speed on them, people would take them in their luggage on airplanes just so they could watch it get up to 500 miles an hour, which is actually pretty cool. I never thought about that. Let's find out what you say about it. Larry's in Bellevue first up. Hey, Larry.
Yeah, how you doing?
Hey, Larry, what's on your mind? Hey.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to mention about, I live out here in Fairview, and out here in Fairview, it's kind of crazy because right downtown Fairview, you're allowed to go 45 miles an hour, which is only 5 miles from being 50, and we're talking about businesses and people walking across the street and everything, and you get over Highway 96, and there's places you have to go 35. I just thought that was kind of crazy, that you can go almost 50 miles an hour right down through there, right in the middle of Fairview, right downtown.
Yeah, you know what? I've found it. Fairview, that's just, what is that? That's out there toward Leapers Fork, right?
Yeah.
Okay, basically, kind of. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just due to the rural nature of the area that you live in. But if you think it's too much, go to your local council meeting. I don't know if Fairview has councils, Larry, and talk to them about it. I've noticed that as well. There's some places where it's odd that the speed is what it is, and then some places you're going 25 miles an hour and you have no idea why. Oftentimes that's because of a prior incident that happened in those areas. Journey is next up on the Murphy Show. Hey, Journey, how are you? Hey, is it Journey?
It's Ernie with an E.
Oh, it's Ernie. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay. What's up, Ernie?
Real quick, I drove 4 million miles on the road. I had a minor accident where I knocked the tail light out. And my experience over the years is it's not the speed. People aren't paying attention. Hell, they don't know how to drive. Half of them, you can't believe the things that I've seen in my career. I'm retired now, but if people could, it's like a bullseye on a target. When you come into the outside ring, you see, you hear, you think in the next ring, and you react. Then you're past the point of no return. And you've got a millisecond, or sometimes you got 2 or 3 seconds to think about what you're going to do. But you can't drive down the road just from getting point A to point B without keeping your mind on what's going on. That's why they don't want people text messaging.
No, you're right about that. More often than not, when I watch on the roads and I see people weaving and resembling a drunk driver, 9 times out of 10 they're on their phone. 9 times out of 10.
It's not against the law to just be stupid. I mean, some people can't drive. I hate to say it, but they need to teach children how to drive because they're going to spend a lot of their time behind the steering wheel through their lives.
Well, that's true. Ernie, you said you've spent 4 million miles on the road?
4 million miles.
Wow.
And I knocked a marker light out in Wynn, Arkansas, and it hurt my feelings.
Wow. Hey,
But,
hey, Ernie, your experience, just me and you talking, okay? Me and you.
Okay.
Your experience, because you've probably driven more than anybody listening to this show right now. And I just want to know your expert opinion. Who are better drivers, men or women?
Well, men are the best drivers as a rule because the pretty little ladies in the red sports car are thinking about getting from point A to point B. They're not trying to. I was always at work when I was driving, but I put hundreds of thousands of miles on pickup trucks, my personal vehicle. But when you're by yourself, you're a better driver than you are when you're in a. The worst thing in the world I ever seen is a guy going down the road with a little low underpass cap on and an I Love New York sticker on his back bumper. You better watch him because he's just allowed to go one way as another.
In one of those big rigs, Ernie, in your 4 million miles of experience, how much nakedness have you seen in automobiles?
Oh, I've seen quite a bit.
I bet. People are Ernie, people are crazy, aren't they?
I've had some pretty little ladies come up and turn the dome light on, so I knew something was coming down when I seen a dome light coming on. But man.
Ernie.
And then every once in a while, it's disgusting to be a guy turning the dome light on.
You got to watch out for Watch out for those dudes turning dome lights on. Ernie, I got to run. Thank you for the call. I want to get to as many as I can. Thank you so much. 4 million miles. And by the way, ladies, that was Ernie that said y'all can't drive as good as men, not me. I asked a man his honest opinion, and he gave it. Don't blame the messenger. Jimbo is next up in Fairview. Hey, Jimbo.
Yes, sir. I got a little story, I guess. I think speed's relative to the traffic conditions, driving conditions, surface, etc. One time at about 4:30 in the morning, I was on a motorcycle called the ZX14 Ninja. If you put it in first gear, take it to the red line, that's 97 miles an hour in first gear. I pulled out on the Interstate 40 eastbound, was probably doing between 155 and 165. I looked over and saw a state trooper sitting there. I thought, oops. And I thought, well, maybe I better pull over. So I did. And that's a football field a second. Goal line to goal line a second. And he came up. He was pretty upset with me. He asked me a bunch of questions. I said, sir, I don't know which question you want me to answer first. He says, I asked the questions here, blah, blah, I'll take you to jail. I put my hands behind my back. I said, sir, I'm not going to try to defend the indefensible. You want to take me to jail? Let's go. And he slapped my hands, and then we talked for about 45 minutes on the side of the road, and I wanted to buy a house from him. Any place else, I'd have been in jail, shot, beat up. I don't know, but I have a tremendous respect and admiration for members of the Tennessee state law enforcement community.
So I assume, based on this incredible story, Jimbo, that you don't have a problem with a speed limit 5 or so miles an hour above what it is now.
Well, I drive a company vehicle. I keep it always under the speed limit. I think if the weather conditions are right and everything's clear, drive with discretion. I think discrepancy in speed, you shouldn't be doing 50 miles an hour faster than somebody else. But if there's nobody on the interstate, well, yeah. So what? If you get a wreck, it's your fault. Your insurance, you should have to pay for the ambulance ride. But it's with discretion.
Well, I'm getting a lot of that. I'm taking, as I take this informal poll, and that's incredible. Keep it slow there, Jimbo. You slow it down over there. You're lucky you got off with just what you got. Based on the super text line and based on what I'm getting off the phone lines, and look, I was picking on Nashville's morning news earlier on the show. I listened as Johnny B and Ken and Dan talked about these young whippersnappers going too fast on the roadways. I mean, they don't sound like that, but you know. And I just wondered if I got a sense where you are on it, if it would be different. And I'm getting the feeling that most people don't really have any trouble with that, with 5 miles an hour above the speed limit as it exists. 2403 says it well. Speed itself is a minuscule factor. The traffic jams, the accidents are mostly caused by people tailgating and refusing to allow lane changes and merges. It's a proven fact based on my opinion. Look, I've noticed this as well. In and around the city, I come into the city every day. I go out of the city every day. I live in Mount Juliet. And I've noticed that people in the merge points, you know, those merge places on the loop when you're trying to get from 40 to the loop or from the loop to 40 or from the loop to 65. There are natural merge points, and I don't expect that tourists will understand that, but locals do. And some of us are trying to get from the left to the right, and some of us are trying to get from the right to the left. And for the life of me, we're all going 20 miles an hour. I don't understand why people tailgate to the point that they just steadfastly refuse to allow you to merge, to the point that I have to stop. I don't normally do this because I try to get the merge gone in advance, but people have to stop in the middle of the road and traffic has gone in their lane because they have to get to the left and nobody will allow them over. Why don't you just allow them over? You're not winning just because you're in front of that car. And by the way, while I'm on my rant, while I have my rant pants on, folks, for 22 years I've been saying this. And for 22 years people have fought me on it. But I am right. When there is a lane closure and 2 lanes are merging into 1, or 3 lanes are merging into 2. You get the idea. When you're losing a lane, it makes no sense for you to merge a half a mile before you lose the lane. What makes sense is that you use all the lanes available to you to the point of the merge and then you zipper. You allow, like, let's say it's a right lane, left lane situation and you're losing the right lane. Everybody goes to the point that you lose the right lane, and then you go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, just like a zipper. That's going to affect the traffic flow through that point a lot quicker than people choose. And I know why you do it. You're like, we want to go ahead and merge and get on over. And then you get mad at the people that don't. I'm one of those people. I'm trying to help you, not hurt. I'm not trying to get in front of you. I don't know why you got over so early. I'm trying to help. All right. I've taken off my rant pants. I'm now rant pantless. It's 2:51 on SuperTalk. Friends, LT360 is so much more than just a weight loss program, although you will lose weight on the program. Let's talk about it. Coach Scott, you know the backstory by now. Scott Oatsvall felt big and tired, and he was sick and tired of being big and tired, and then he had a major medical event in his life, and he's very open about this. He talks about realizing that if he did not do something to get healthy on a cellular level, to get to the bottom of why he was not healthy, that he was not going to be here for his family, was not going to be here for his wife and kids. And he decided to do something about it. And it was so successful, he has created a business where he imparts this incredible knowledge to you. It is a program of success. It's one that works. You will lose the weight. You will get healthier. You can get yourself off pharmaceutical medicines thanks to Coach Scott, Dr. Underwood, and the rest of the crew at the LT360 location and it's right there in Cool Springs. All you have to do is go by. You can see them in person or go online to LT360.com. That's LT360.com. Friends, this is holistic health on the cellular level that works, and I'm a testimony to it. LT360. Go to LT360.com and change your life with LT360.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Winkler. The financial world can be full of landmines for investors. On the one hand, investment firms and the financial community will often overcomplicate the financial planning process to confuse investors. As one guy who used to work a big investment firm once told me, if an investor thinks that they're over their head, they'll blindly trust you. And it's easier to sell to them. I'm glad I'm away from that. On the other hand, many people oversimplify investing to the detriment of investors. Just having a little knowledge can be really dangerous. The idea there is the same. It's just a different way of selling things. At Paul Winkler Inc., we like working alongside our clients with an education guidance approach. I believe that there's confidence that comes with knowing what you're doing and why. We abide by the very highest level of fiduciary care, and we use the most sophisticated financial planning tools out there. And every one of our offices is run by a degreed planner with over 20 years experience. No kids fresh out of college. If that sounds like a winning formula, set up a free 15-minute phone call to learn more. Go to paulwinkler.com or call 615-851-1950. You can do this.